Hi YouTube, it's Kathy and this is my weekly entertainment wrap up for April 5th through 11th. This week I read 2 books, I watched 4 shows, I watched 3 movies, and I listened to 1 book. Let's get a tangent out of the way to start with. Firstly, this is the last day I can legitimately wear this t-shirt because tomorrow it will no longer be accurate. And because of that, I have a very big video releasing tomorrow, so you might want to remember to come back for that, but also come in prepared because it's a long one. You're going to want snacks, you're probably going to want a beverage, and I very much hope you have a very fun time with it. I also wanted to point out that I know exactly where I was 10 years ago to this day because I remember very specifically wandering around in a resort in Mexico because my mom had taken me there for my 30th and just getting different shots around this resort and trying to figure out something profound to say about the previous decade of my life. Don't worry, I'm not going to do that to you here, but I will link that previous video down below if you are so interested. That was back when I only had like maybe 60 videos on the channel, and let's just say we have many more. The first book that I finished this week is How to Lose a Goblin in 10 Days. This is a book where a halfling's grandmother has passed, and in her will she gave her granddaughter her cottage, which hasn't been used in quite some time because the grandmother actually moved in with them probably a couple of decades ago, just so somebody could be around to watch her, because when she came back from adventuring she was a little bit different. This halfling has always felt like she hasn't really fit in with life in her very small town, and she does want to explore, but she doesn't want to go on an adventure with the wizard because things tend to go really wrong when you do that. So she figures that this, being just outside of the bounds of her town and somewhere she can be alone but she can still visit family, sounds perfect. However, when she gets there she realizes that the house has actually been occupied for quite some time by a goblin. Not specifically this goblin because they only got there quite recently, but previous to that their aunt had been the caretaker of this space, and now they've just taken that on because if they don't grow enough food on this property, their clan won't survive the winter. Obviously, both of these people have legitimate reasons why they would like to be in this one space, and both of them would like to be alone, thank you very much, so they make a bet. Whoever can stay on the property for 10 days, not get driven away by the other person, gets to stay there. So of course they start doing things to try to ensure that the other one won't want to live there. But do they fall in love instead? I think you can guess yes. This was quite delightful and full of whimsy, and I very much enjoyed the dynamic between these characters and getting to see both of their backgrounds and what was happening and how things were super important or how people were just kind of mean to them for no reason depending on the circumstance. And overall I had a very good time. The other book I read with my eyeballs also has a decent helping of whimsy, and that is My Boyfriend is a Swamp Monster. Now this is the first in a new series, however it takes place in the same universe as the Mothman in Love series, so you will definitely see characters that you know from that series if you read this. However, if you haven't read those and you do want to read this, you don't need to know about those characters ahead of time. Everything is explained. It's just kind of fun to be like, oh yeah, I definitely remember this being a background thing in a previous book. But again, you don't need to have read the previous books to enjoy these. Our main character Marina had a pretty tough upbringing. Her parents were rock stars, however they died when she was very young, so she went to live with her uncle, who was brother to her father and also their bandmate, but he at this point has also passed on, so she did the majority of her growing up with her aunt, who despises her, and her cousin, who also seems to despise her. And even when her uncle was still around, he had some anger issues, so she never really had a comfortable upbringing except for the summers where she'd be sent away to camp. Now her cousin was also sent to the same camp, but her cousin again didn't want anything to have to do with her, so she found herself alone quite a lot. And the thing is, the adults in her life, upon reading her diary, thought that she was making up an imaginary friend. Turns out that this very cool boy that she always met down by the lake wasn't actually made up and is in fact a fish person. This is dual POV, so we also get Gil's POV, and he's been coming back to the same summer camp every single year because the last time they saw each other, he was going to bring Marina to his dimension and then something went terribly wrong. So he takes a vacation every year and goes back just in case she happens to go back to the same place. And as we're meeting him, they are both going to be in the same place for the first time in like 10 years. And he has to figure out how to tell her that A, he's real, and B, he really is from a different dimension, and yes, he does have scales, because he does have a glamour he can put on where he looks like a white surfer dude type of situation, but that's not his true self. And then don't even get me started on the fact that his best friend is the Vampire King, and also Mothman is a friend of his, and there's fairies, and all of that is going to be a lot to try to explain to this woman he's been obsessed with since he was a child. This is incredibly endearing and adorable. I really enjoyed it, and I'm excited to see what happens in the next one, because I have to imagine the next one doesn't follow these two characters, but I'm hoping that Magnus finally gets a book, because although I met him before, and I wasn't the biggest fan because of what was going on in the exact circumstances in which we met him, I do think he deserves to eventually be happy. As for the shows I watched this week, I finished the second season of Veronica Mars, and I went into the first couple of episodes of the third season. I can tell you, I had never seen the second season before. I can tell you after watching it and being like, yep, none of this was familiar. And then I got into the third season and immediately texted my best friend going, what the hell is going on with the theme tune? Because it's the same song, they just slowed it down, and I'm not a fan. And she immediately texted back, it's a travesty, that's what it is. She knew off the top of her head that this is what had happened, and she did not like it either when she saw it like 20 years ago. The second season primarily has to do with a bus crash situation. There are other mysteries interwoven in there. That is the major mystery of that season, and I definitely didn't know anything about that and how that ended, which was pretty traumatic. And now we've gotten into the third season, she is in college, and something that we learned about in the second season is definitely an overarching theme for this third season, which is pretty difficult subject matter actually, so I applaud them for at least trying to do this type of subject matter, and it will be interesting to see how this goes. Just to be quite quick with these next three ones, because they're things I watch kind of every week and I don't really have too much to say about them. Firstly, we stayed current on Jetlag the Game, and to be fair, I actually have something to report on this. I was at a book fair yesterday, and I happened to mention the fact that I wasn't going to be able to go to somebody's book launch that I was kind of interested in going to because I would be in Europe, and once we started talking about the fact that I was going on this trip, the woman behind the counter is like, oh, do you know about jet lag? And I was like, I love jet lag, so we got to talk about that, which was really fun. I'm continuing to enjoy the series, obviously, and I'm excited to see what else happens. Also, there's seasons that we definitely want to rewatch at this point. We also watched the third episode in the Tom Scott England series, which was very cool, but because it doesn't come out on YouTube until Monday, I won't tell you exactly what he was doing, but it was definitely right up my alley because I love a mystery. And thirdly, we watched the first episode of the 21st season of Taskmaster, which was so much fun. I think Jason Mantzoukas kind of broke open the door for Americans to be on the show, so now we obviously have a very famous American on the show. As you will come to find out in the episode, one of the other contestants upon meeting him is like, oh my god, you're really famous. And that became like a through line for the first episode, which I found very funny. As for movies we watched, I watched Equalizer 2. I don't think I've ever seen Equalizer 1, but it's the kind of thing where if your roommate just tells you a couple of lines about it, you're like, oh, it's Denzel Washington, he's got a strong sense of justice, and it's an action flick. Okay, I'm on board, let's go. And for my purposes, that's basically what you need to know. The action sequences are really cool. There were different things that were happening where I was like, oh, if anyone touches a hair on this old man's head, I'm gonna be so mad because I only met him 5 seconds ago, but I already adore him. And I had an idea where that storyline was going, and then it was even better, and I almost cried. We also watched America, the motion picture, because we knew it was a comedy movie that kind of shits on our neighbors to the south, and yeah, this definitely does that. This concerns a bunch of people from American history, but not in the right time frame. So you have this guy talking to this guy, and you're like, I don't think these guys ever actually met. Also, one character turns out to also be a werewolf. Another guy basically has hovering powers because he's basically a character out of Star Wars, but he's also this historical character. It's anachronistic and ridiculous, and if you're just looking to laugh at things and try not to embed them in your brain as actual history, this can be fun. And I'd like to say I wasn't going into this trying to learn anything. Obviously, I knew the premise was going to be silly, but I also spent a lot of time going, I don't think these people ever actually met. The third movie we watched the other night was Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die. This one is very strange because it starts out in this diner setting, and you have this man walk into the diner and be like, hi guys, this is the 107th time I've tried to do this. Some combination of these people are going to be able to help me to save humanity from AI. It's a time loop situation. Fun. And then as we're going on, we see a little bit of the backstory of the people that he's chosen in this timeline to try to help him make it so that the future doesn't suck as his reality before he started coming back in time and trying to change things. It is absolutely weird. I can't describe it any more than that, besides to say that the production value is absolutely beautiful. It's incredibly engaging and super weird. As for the book I listened to this week, that was Scorched Grace. This is the first in a mystery series, and our main character in this one is a nun who is queer, covered in tattoos, and likes solving mysteries. Mostly she doesn't like not understanding what's going on, I think is her biggest thing, which lends itself quite well to solving mysteries. This takes place in New Orleans. It is incredibly hot during this time frame, and she is head to toe in her garb. In fact, in addition to what a nun usually wears, she is forced to wear this scarf to cover up tattoos that come all the way up to her jawline, and gloves to cover up her hands because she's got tattoos there from her previous life, in which she was a very queer, very out there musician. However, she's also always been very big into the Catholic faith as well. For example, her mother for a time was also a nun. So when something big happens in her life, she chooses to just become a nun. And this is kind of the only order of nuns that would take her, and a few of the nuns really don't like her because she has a past. Then all of a sudden she's just minding her business when one of the church buildings goes up in flames, and she wants to know why that happened because there was a fatality. A couple of the kids that attend the school that she works at were also injured in this, so she wants to know what's going on, especially because somebody seems to be trying to pin it on her. I really enjoyed this. I've already asked for the second book from the library. I believe there's even a third in the series already, and also as a bonus, if you are listening to it as an audiobook, Mara Wilson is the narrator and she does a phenomenal job. Like I said, I really enjoyed this, can recommend. That's it for this week, and this is the last wrap-up of my 30s, which is super weird to say. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that, as always, is down below. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you tomorrow for a very long video. Bye!